Oh man, another busy one. We are going to spend some time on Gossip Corner with John Mulaney, and there's a lot of Chappelle stuff again. I'll do that in the second half. I just don't want the Dave Chappelle stuff to swallow the podcast every single day. But let's start with late night. New York City has got a mandate for vaccines. The deadline is November 1st. The vaccination rate for the NYPD is 71% and roughly 60% for the fire department. Trevor Noah said, maybe they just don't know how to get vaccinated. I mean, it seems easy, but some cops don't even know how to turn on a body camera. But it's still a little concerning because any police who don't get vaccinated can't go to work. And if there's a shortage of police, well, that could cause some big problems. I mean, protesters can't kick the crap out of themselves. Plus, who are the Karens going to call when they feel scared? The police union had announced a lawsuit to stop the mandate from taking effect on November 1st. Trevor said, I got to say, out of all the occupations, cops and firefighters are the last people who I'd expect to see this from. These are the same people who sign up to swarm hostage situations or run into burning buildings. But when it comes to the vaccine, suddenly they're like, I don't know, seems like a health risk. Let's hit Gossip Corner. Have John Mulaney and Olivia Munn split up? Oh no. A source tells Us Weekly this has been an imperfect relationship from the start. You think? The whirlwind relationship has 41-year-old Olivia Munn's inner circle concerned that the romance might be over as fast as it started. A source says even though Olivia is going to be a wonderful mother and has great support behind her, Olivia's friends just don't see these two being a couple in years' time. Oh no. Their loved ones believe the new couple will absolutely make great parents, a little bundle of joy, but nobody knows yet if they're going to do it together or apart. Olivia and John still have to decide what kind of future they're going to have together, if any. It's a time of uncertainty for both of them. The source says the parents-to-be are a long way from deciding and locking in what their relationship's going to be going forward. Vulture jumps in and says initial rumors about Munn and Mulaney's possible breakup started swirling after the celebrity gossip Instagram page Du Moi posted a blind item, which then became the subject of a viral TikTok from a, quote, sweaty man. What are we even doing on TikTok? Like, what are you even doing? I know I'm old, but what is going on in TikTok that the sweaty man is, I can't even. Hey, did you see Ed Sheeran has tested positive for COVID? Now, the reason I bring that up on the Daily Comedy News is he was supposed to be the musical guest on the next episode of Saturday Night Live. SNL's off this week. The next episode is November 6th. As of this recording, producers are scrambling to find a replacement that fits Sheeran's demo. Sheeran has volunteered to perform remotely, but SNL's not really into that. Patton Oswalt has suggested that Harry Potter star Rupert Grint, who starred in Ed Sheeran's video for Lego House, that Rupert Grint start a cover band called Ed Nearin. We'll see. Did you watch SNL this week? I thought it was fantastic. I watched it with the wife. First of all, I thought I messed up. I was like, hey, what are you doing? Nothing? You want to watch SNL? Can you give me a couple minutes? And then I was like in like TV limbo, you know, like when the wife wants to watch a show with you and then she doesn't want to watch a show with you. So now what do you do? And you watch 20 minutes of something? Yeah, it was a whole fight in my house the other night. Then the daughter came down to use the printer. So I'm like, well, I can't watch Succession. That's very adult. And I can't watch the other two because that has some sex scenes. And I'm just like killing time on the TV. Finally, the wife showed up. The opening sketch, Biden meets Biden meets Biden. The sketch opened in the Oval Office where we found James Austin Johnson, who so far is the MVP of SNL. By the way, Kate McKinnon, are you actually on Saturday Night Live? You have appeared in as many sketches as I have. So I want to be added to the credits to SNL because apparently you don't actually have to be on the show to be in the credits. Come on, Daryl Hammond, hook me up. So anyway, Joe Biden is in the Oval Office. He's talking about his low approval rating. Then the ghost of Biden Pass, played by Jason Sudeikis, doing his Joe Biden impression. He showed up, and that was kind of fun. Then Alex Moffat's Biden from, quote, March 2021, who neither of them remember, showed up. That was pretty funny. The Guardian adds, it's a funny bit of self-depreciation on the part of Moffat. Yes, it was. I appreciated it a lot. The opening monologue was okay. I thought he was trying to go for something that didn't land. Then there was a sketch for a PBS kids show called The Science Room. Sudeikis' friendly, nerdy host, Mr. Teacher, attempts to teach two nervous, enthusiastic children. It took a while to get rolling, but then some great jokes. Mr. Teacher asked, what is matter? And one of them said, Black Lives? Good sketch. Then Jason Sudeikis played Mellon, the male version of Ellen. His new talk show offers all the fun daytime energy of Ellen with a hard masculine edge, and there were like crotch punches and stuff. Some Joe Rogan jokes. Enjoyed that a lot. A musical sketch about Annie. Tried real hard. I don't think it landed. But for me with comedy, I appreciate when somebody goes for something, even if it misses. I'd rather you do that than a hack joke. The non-stick underwear sketch, Weekend update, always in the zone, pretty good. Sudeikis showed up as the devil, and I like that they got in a joke about the devil, suggesting that he has a deal with Colin Jost for marrying Scarlett Johansson. I was particularly happy to hear that joke because I had made it in my head and I was waiting for it. Then the Halloween edition of the BET game show, What's Up With That? I thought this sketch was tons of fun. My wife didn't get it, and I liked that everybody was having a good time doing the sketch. Even if it wasn't hilarious, it went on long enough, and the performers were laughing at themselves that I really enjoyed it. A couple other sketches towards the end there. Nice, solid episode of Saturday Night Live. I checked out Ricky Velez's new special on HBO Max. I gotta be honest, the opener just wasn't good. It was about old people, and I was struggling to hang in there, and my thumb's on the remote, and I'm like, you host Daily Common News, you got to give this a shot. I hit pause. I checked the timer. I was exactly 4 minutes in, and I bailed. Sorry, just didn't like it. If you like it, awesome. I just didn't do it for me. Sorry, Ricky Velez. Craig Robinson's got a new sitcom on Peacock. It is called Killing It. Craig Robinson plays Craig, a man who will do anything to make his American dream come true, even compete in a state-sponsored python hunt. Sure, that sounds like a sitcom premise to me. 10 episodes, 30 minutes each, coming to Peacock. The Jonas Brothers will be taking the heat in Jonas Brothers Family Roast. This is a 1-hour comedy special coming to Netflix November 23rd. Kenan Thompson is your host. In Jonas Brothers Family Roast, it's a one-of-a-kind comedy special of epic proportions that celebrates the universal truth that no one can get under your skin like your own family. You'll see the multi-platinum global superstars, the Jonas Brothers, like you've never seen them before, through sketches, songs, games, and special guests, all to give them a roasting they'll never forget. Guest appearances by Pete Davidson, Niall Horan, Gabe Iglesias, John Legend, Lily Singh, Jack Whitehall, and more. Gonna be honest, that sounds like a complete mess, and I'm sure my kids will watch it. From The Hollywood Reporter, George Lopez is making his way back to broadcast television. This was a big news story, but I'm like, didn't we know this already? Didn't I already tell you that George Lopez will star and executive produce a comedy called Lopez versus Lopez? I told you about this, right? Why was this news, Hollywood Reporter? I guess because it received a formal pilot order at NBC. It's expected to be on NBC's 2022-23 schedule. I mean, George Lopez, you know I love your tacos, but am I supposed to sit here for a year and a half waiting for a George Lopez NBC sitcom? Come on, bang this thing out. This should be on Netflix next week. Today's Daily Comedy News is brought to you by my number one Tuesday podcast, All Pro Lines. It could be my number one podcast every day, but they only put out the episode on Tuesday, except for the Patreon guys. They get a bonus episode. Look, Aaron Kostaki, you can plug your own Patreon. I'm not doing that. I'll plug the podcast proper. You guys can upsell the Patreon. Anyway, All Pro Lines. Comedy plus NFL equals All Pro Lines. I am the Carlos Mencia of podcast promos, so let me steal some jokes from the @AllProLines Twitter account. @AllProLines tweets, Sunday had so many blowouts, it was like a hair salon in the 80s. They joked about the rainy Sunday night football game. This game has more slippery balls than baby oil night at Andy Dick's house. Pretty good. And the Chiefs went from great to bad before our very eyes, like John Gruden's Q score. All Pro Lines, Kostaki and Aaron. They sort of break down the games. We'll crack in some jokes. It's a good hang. All Pro Lines, wherever you get your podcasts, you should do it. All right, Dave Chappelle time. Dave Chappelle is coming to Cincinnati, says WLWT. He's bringing his Untitled documentary tour. The title of the documentary tour is Untitled. It gets very confusing, but I'm actually reading the script so I can see the quotes. Untitled documentary tour comes to Heritage Bank Center on November 17th. The tour will feature a screening of Untitled as well as a live performance by Chappelle and his friends. If you host this podcast, you cannot wait for this, especially mid-November Chappelle content. I'm in. Between this and Gossip Corner, great. Dave's actually going to screen the documentary at 10 arenas throughout the U.S., which is awesome, again, because then 10 different cities will write about this. Can't wait. The Heritage Bank Center's website warns you no cell phones, cameras, or recording devices will be allowed at the show. When guests arrive, they'll be asked to put phones and smartwatches in yonder pouches that will be unlocked at the end of the show. I hate that. Anyone caught with a cell phone at the show will be ejected from the venue immediately. From Fox News, Outkicks Clay Travis, he's not down with the people protesting Dave Chappelle. He said, we've entered into a space where people think they are the good guys for trying to cancel comedians and tell them what jokes they can and cannot say. The woke universe cannot handle any form of disagreement. They are completely committed to the authoritarianism of their perspective. What I would ask of you is this: how often historically do we judge people who are unwilling to have any sense of humor as being on the right side of history in the long run? If you are convinced that your sense of humor is the only one that is allowed to exist, then how in the world are you able to see nuance and have a funny version of yourself? How in the world can we take anyone who shows up to protest jokes seriously? You are spending your time to protest what someone else can find funny. And Vulture has a lengthy piece called Dave Chappelle, the Comedy Relic. Danielle Fuentes is on the byline. Danielle writes, I teach a college course on African-American comedy almost every year where we use literary and cultural studies theories to address the public and political significance of African-American satire and comedy. From the 19th century to the present, the class is centered on analyzing film, TV, literature, and stand-up comedy. With the release of The Closer, Dave Chappelle has been a particularly unavoidable figure this term. This sounds like an interesting class. Most of my students were born after the release of Chappelle's 2000 special Killing Them Softly and were in preschool when his follow-up For What It's Worth premiered 4 years later. When I introduced them to his early material, they were often surprised and impressed by his ability to punch up, to speak truth to power, to focus his attacks on injustices and institutions with discernibly more power than he had. Also, it's just funny. It's Chappelle's ability to respond to the realities of that time, to racism, sexism, policing, government mismanaged, with humor and precision that captivates them now like it captivated comedy audiences 20 years ago. Danielle Fuentes then breaks down some other material. I won't read that to you here. It's on Vulture. She writes, for the new generation, Dave's approach has been akin to an out-of-touch uncle who corners you at the holidays when you're just trying to hang out with your cousins. He's forgotten what my students know, that comedy exists in the terrain where boundaries are recognized and then transgressed without harming people who don't deserve it. When boundaries are transgressed and people who don't deserve it are harmed, it's no longer comedy, it's horror. Today, his loudest supporters aren't talking about hilarity. They're talking about free speech, people being too sensitive, cancel culture. He's not getting as laughs as he's getting clapter that's usually associated with self-satisfied leftist ideologies, but that here allows conservative viewpoints validation because they're being espoused by a traditionally left-leaning black man. This kind of response has less to do with jokes and more to do with ridicule. It shows you agree with who is being targeted. It's not until I show students clips from Chappelle's earlier stand-up specials that they start to understand what was once his appeal. They can see why we were laughing then, but they're watching a ghost of comedy past. Again, you'll find that on Vulture. I'll talk about the clapter. That was my biggest takeaway from the special, was I was entertained for sure, but I didn't laugh as much as I have at previous specials. And the clapter thing, I keep seeing that term, and I remember bringing that up on this podcast. It was Tom Papa's special, where I noticed the audience wasn't laughing. They were just applauding at what Tom was saying. And I think for a comedian, I don't think that's a good thing. You're there for the laughs, not for like, yeah, great point, clap, 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 clap. So getting a little weird there. Hey, you can buy me a coffee. Kenny did. Kenny actually bought me 2 large iced coffees, writing, my new morning routine. Thanks for making me smile while listening to the news again. Kenny, thank you for the 2 coffees. And I have coffee news. I went to National Donuts chain, and as you guys know, I usually get a large iced coffee with caramel and milk. Well, there's a new flavor offering, one of those temporary ones that they like get me addicted, and then they pull it away. Like in the spring, they do butter pecan. I love the butter pecan. They offered up peanut butter cup, like a Reese's, but they can't say Reese's, I guess. Ooh, that's intriguing. So Kenny, National Donuts chain, large iced coffee, peanut butter cup, and milk on you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for listening. Thank all of you for listening. You can follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. I always like seeing your posts on the Facebook group. If there's something in comedy that interests you, if you see a funny sketch, if you're a comedian and you want to promote your show, feel encouraged to post on the Facebook group. It is Daily Comedy News Podcast. Instagram is at Daily Comedy News. Meet you back here tomorrow. We'll see what's happening on Gossip Corner.